Frodo took the envelope from the mantelpiece and glanced at it, but did not open it. "You'll find his will and all the other documents in there, I think," said the wizard. "You are the master of Bag End now. And also, I fancy you'll find a golden ring." "The ring!" exclaimed Frodo. "Has he left me that? I wonder why. Still, it may be useful." "It may and it may not," said Gandalf. "I should not make use of it if I were you. But keep it a secret and keep it safe. Now I'm going to bed." Taking a look at Fellowship of the Ring today, the first of the trilogy made by J.R.R. Tolkien, probably the most famous fantasy series of all time, The Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna try and keep this very brief. There are people way more knowledgeable on this than me. So this is just some dude on YouTube reading Lord of the Rings. I'm hesitant to make reviews of these videos because I don't know what I'm talking about. Keep watching the video. but oh man, I'll give it my best shot. I really like this book. This is non-spoilers at the beginning. I probably won't do too many spoilers, honestly. And honestly, I watched the movies before I read the books. This is my first read through of the book. I recently read through The Hobbit, but this was a good read. It took me a little bit to get used to the writing style. It is a little bit old. I think I'll appreciate this whole book a whole lot more once I have a few more fantasy series under my belt. This is really only my second one after the Mistborn trilogy, and The Hobbit, I guess. But just a few things that I noticed from being not very well versed in fantasy. Tolkien is amazing at his world building. The whole story behind the ring and the rings is really fascinating. The whole lore that he created, because Tolkien was trying to create like a mythology for the United Kingdom. And so that's how this book kind of reads. He wanted to create something with deep history, as if it could have happened in the way far in the past. And he did an excellent job of this. This is a great book. It's a must-read for any fantasy lover, for sure. I loved it. I just want to make that clear, too. It did take me a little bit to get used to the writing style. I listened to this on Audible, and I don't know, the song breaks just kind of, I just kind of like want to skip through it. If I was reading this book, I do plan on reading this book in a few years, like actually sitting down and reading it, because I find my mind wanders a little bit when I listen to books. But I wanted to give a listen to this whole series. But anyways, it's I don't know, just some old dude singing, "There is an inn, a merry old inn, beneath an old grey hill." A little bit better than me, but still, it's kind of like, it's just a little weird for me. But it happens more often than you'd think, I guess. But the overall story of this is really cool. It's about, the Fellowship, a group of people all getting together, which I will talk a little bit about maybe in the spoiler section of this video. But yeah, it's a great read. I don't know what else really to say. I'm sorry if this isn't very... Read it. It's really good. It's not too long. It's not a huge commitment. This edition is like 400 pages long. Just follows an adventure of a group of friends as they have to deal with some stuff. I can't say anything without spoiling it. So, all right. That's enough for the non-spoiler section. Here comes some spoilers if by some chance you haven't seen the movies or watched this or anything. You've been warned. Spoilers. I love the opening. Honestly, the opening chapter is the most interesting to me, featuring Bilbo's birthday, turning 11-1. I just love all that, and that's where you get some of the history as well. It goes through that, and then how I don't exactly remember how Bilbo is related to Frodo, if it's his nephew or something like that. People who know more, it's not his son or anything, but it's his heir to all the wealth that he's created from his adventures, and there's a dragon and stuff in a previous time with some treasure and whatnot. But anyways, it's just really interesting hearing all about the Shire and learning a little bit more about the Baggins and the other Baggins, the other hobbits that live in the Shire. It was just really interesting to me, and how he makes this big speech and then takes the ring and vanishes, and had a hard time giving it away because of that pull from the ring. I thought the whole, I watched the movies, but it was a while ago that I watched those, and the whole history behind, what is it, the 9 rings for the men and the however many for the dwarves and the elves or whatever. And then there was the one ring to rule them all, and how it went through, I forget names, and then to Schmeagol, crazy from from the ring, and then it passed down to Bilbo, kind of through his trickery in The Hobbit, and then through to end up with Frodo, who has some plans to take it on a little trip to Mordor. Eventually we see his plans. But I love the whole group of people in here. We've got, Samwise, of course, the famous, probably the most famous sidekick, and one of the most famous sidekicks in history of all fiction, I would say. I can't think of, Frodo and Sam, Batman and Robin. I don't know. But Merry and Pippin, they're okay. Gandalf is probably my favorite character in this. I love Gandalf and just kind of the mystery behind him, that he's a wizard, but you don't know exactly the magic stuff. And he's Gandalf the Grey. And how there's different kinds of wizards, and his role is interacting with people, and that's kind of how his job is to help with the ring and stuff. This is going a little bit over my head if you can't tell, so I apologize, but kind of bridging the gap between the magic people and the normal world, and then you've got Saruman, I hope I'm saying that right, the white, who turns out isn't the best guy by the end of this book, but there's some interesting stuff with the Nazgul and the bad guys coming after him. We see Strider, who's Aragorn. He was a pretty cool character as well. We see Legolas. I always just picture Legolas as Orlando Bloom, because what a handsome man. Anyways, yeah, it's a good book. Like I said, I don't really want to get too much into it, because there are so many people who've gone so much more in depth on the Lord of the Rings. But I loved it. It's a really, really great book, and I see why it's held on such a high pedestal, in that, everyone who writes fantasy nowadays, it seems they all point to Tolkien as the granddaddy of fantasy, and I think it's well deserved. I do plan, and I should say too, this originally, I think, because there's 2 books within this book, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's 5 or I don't know how many books total make up. I think the plan for Tolkien was this is just one story. In fact, the way this goes is, this ends on page 398. This next book, The Two Towers, picks up, I think, on 400 then, right? Yeah, 403. So it's shown, I'm going to give it 3 separate video reviews, but we see it in this collection that I have it in, as the 3 books really should be all bridged into one book, and that's how it should be read. And I plan on diving into The Two Towers real quick here. But first book is fantastic. It's a must-read for all fantasy users. I looked through the edition I have here, and it's cool. There's some, like, you know, Elvish and stuff actually written in. There's cool maps in this edition as well. You see, like, you know, there's a nice map of the Shire here. I think there's a map at the end of this too. Yeah, where we see the whole world map. We've got Gondor, which is where, you know, most of the stuff happens. Rohan, Mordor, where we find out we're traveling to and all that stuff. So, to destroy the ring, the evil ring. So, yeah, anyways, it's a great book. That was just a lot of blabbering, but I can't recommend it more. If you are interested in fantasy, you can't go wrong. I will say, too, I liked this a lot more than The Hobbit. The Hobbit was not bad by any means. I enjoyed it, but this is really the meat and potatoes. I like this series a lot more so far. So, and you know, I kind of know what happens, like I said, because I've seen the movies. But in the books, I don't know exactly what happens. I've heard that the movie adaptations are really close. Obviously, you're never going to get perfect, but compared to a lot of these other things that are like book to movie adaptations, I think The Lord of the Rings is really good. But yeah, anyways, thanks so much for watching. I think that's everything. Continue the conversation in the comments below. I'm sure I screwed up a bunch of stuff, so please feel free to correct me down there. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. If you like the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and bell button so you don't miss any other videos with me. Comment below, like I said, if you have any other questions. Like, I'm not an expert on this stuff by any means. I'm just getting into it, so realize that too. But please feel free to correct me if I made any mistakes down below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.